It was good to get a win on Saturday night. As I mentioned after the game, it was just a gritty performance by our young men. I think everyone understands the struggles that we've had in terms of injuries and having to overcome that, particularly offensively in the receiving corps, and then defensively up in the front, and then it kind of creeped into the secondary a little bit too. And so I was very impressed just with. I wasn't surprised, but I was impressed with the character they showed, the energy they showed, the passion that they showed, particularly when we went down 14-0. When you're coming off of two tough road losses against two really good opponents, and you're struggling, and you go down 14-0, that's the time when you look for teams to fold. And I just give our young men tremendous credit for continuing to play with great energy and enthusiasm and passion, and continuing to pull for each other and believe. And those are all positives that you can build on. Hopefully this week, we'll get a couple guys back on defense that can help us. A couple guys will be a little bit more healthy that did play, so they can, play maybe a little more effectively and a little bit more free. But I was impressed with those guys. And this is an exciting week. Obviously, it's a rivalry game. But for us, it's got to always be about just continuing to try to make improvement and play our best, do what we're supposed to do to get ready to be physically, mentally, and emotionally ready to go at 5:14 on Saturday night, and keeping the focus on the things that we can control, which is our preparation, our attitude, our effort, our mindset, and that's what we'll do. So it's exciting, though.
Would you say, Coach, that this has been one of the craziest years in your coaching career?
In terms of overcoming injuries, yes, it has been. I've had a couple like this, but not many. Not many. Yeah, it's a challenge, and I'm not one that wants to ever blame anything on injuries, but there's a reason one guy's a starter and one guy's a backup, and one guy's supposed to be a redshirt freshman and one's not. It's because there's levels of ability that start to present themselves at different periods in their career, and so it makes it a challenge. But I'm also one that loves a challenge. I think it always brings out the very best in us, and I think it's bringing out the very best in our young men. And so I think it's a great life lesson for all of them. It's not fun, but it's a great life lesson.
Did Josh come out okay that game?
Besides the bloodied nose, and and our offensive line did a tremendous job again, and we recognize them as a team today, as a group, and they've done a good job protecting him. But we know how Josh is Josh doesn't like to concede a play. He doesn't like to give up. He actually pulled the ball on a couple of those zone reads and scrambled for 6 inches, and I think that he took a hit to the face on the face mask that time. But he's like all our guys. They got grit, and I applaud him for that.
Devon's thumb, is he making progress there?
He is. Saturday night, had we had to play someone other than Josh, it would not have been able to beat Devon. He was not able to grip the football yet. But the swelling has gone down, the pain is subsiding. But we would have put him in an emergency role to hand off, so we didn't have to burn Austin's red shirt. So, I know this, that he wants to play so bad. He wants to be ready. He wants to be there for his team, and he's doing everything possible to get it, to where he can grip the football and rip it. And he's living downstairs in the training room. When he's not at class or he's not in an academic appointment, he's down there with our athletic training staff trying to get better.
It looked like it was the most balanced offense you might have had.
Felt like it.
Good balance of run and pass.
Felt like it, yeah. It felt like we were equally effective as the game went on. We had to overcome some drops and some misreads by the quarterback and the typical things that happen in a game. But I think we found a good balance as we moved through the game.
Coach, you just got through talking about drops and missed assignments. In a game like this one coming up, is it fundamentals that sometimes can decide who wins and who loses?
I think it's a lot of things. I think it's fundamentals, absolutely. It's not getting out of your head, when the emotions start to ramp up because it is a rivalry. It's still playing with great emotion, but not becoming an emotional wreck where you can't recover from a good play or from a bad play and lose your fundamentals. So I think it's being able to just stay in the moment. There's a lot of things, it's tackling well, it's blocking you're supposed to block, it's having the calm to catch a ball and not make a penalty because you're trying to do too much. It's all of those things. It's just playing good, sound, fundamental football and playing with tremendous effort and energy.
Coach, what have you seen from your rushing defense, let's say, over the last month, and how they've improved? Some of the things that you were citing in tackling and gap assignment.
I don't like to stand up here and ever make excuses. I just, I feel like I've made too many excuses with injuries already, but it's a fact. Here's what I see. I see a defensive line that at this point is starting to get it. Things happen so fast during a game, and because they're so young, and when we lost Matt, we got very, very young. 3 of our guys that were playing a lot for us last year, I think, are all making an impact, if not starting in the NFL, with Ely and Eddie and Tack. And we've only got one real veteran in there, and that's Jacob. And so when things start to happen fast, they get out of a gap and they get a run, then they try to overcompensate, and their mind starts to race. And I've seen things start to slow down. I see it in practice on a consistent basis, starting to see it in games on a more consistent basis. That's the front four. And then with the linebackers, Kenny Young is very solid in there, and he's played very well for us, and under some extreme circumstance, which means a lot of youngsters in front of him, and Chris Barnes and Keyshawn on either side, who have not played hardly at all. Keyshawn was a defensive lineman, so you'll see Kenny a lot of the game trying to direct them and help them get lined up. I think in Keyshawn and Chris Barnes, you've got 2 young, talented guys. I think they're really going to be good players. But again, they haven't played much, And Saturday night, our plan was to play a lot of base defense against Arizona State when they got into their 3-wide package. That was our plan. And things started to move really fast, and the misdirection and the motion. And, for a young guy like Keyshawn, who's playing defensive end 4 weeks ago, now all of a sudden he's behind the ball out of necessity, it became a little overwhelming. So we had to move into our nickel world, put him at down lineman, and play that way, and that got Pickett in the box where he's better. So we're making improvement. It doesn't always show up on Saturday night, on a consistent basis, but I see it. I also love the way Mossy came in and tackled. We've seen too many open field tackles missed that turn into 50-yard gains. And even though they had some holes in there because we weren't exactly right, Mossy was coming up with pick and they were making tackles. So it was a 12-yard instead of a 55-yarder. So that was important. But we're going to just keep working at it and get better.
You were really complimentary of Sam Darnold after last year's game. Mm-hmm. How have you seen his game evolve this year?
Well, look, probably won't come across well with some UCLA fans because I guess you're not supposed to, pull for your opponent, and I don't pull for him other than I respect and appreciate the player that he is and the young man that he is. I think he's a tremendous young man. First of all, I've gotten to know him a little bit, and I have, my daughter's over there, so there's connections, and she knows him, and says nothing but great things about him. And then I watch him as a competitor, and I have tremendous respect for him as a competitor. He's like our guy. I mean, they're gritty, they're tough, they're not afraid to shoulder the load, and those are the guys you love to compete against. I mean, it's a challenge, and maybe I shouldn't say you love it. It's tough, but if you're really a competitor, if you really love those moments when you're tested, then you want to play against the Sam Darnolds because he's going to bring out the best in you. That's just the kind of kid he is.
You mentioned getting guys back on defense. Is that Jalen and Jaleel?
Jalen and Jaleel, hopefully will both be back. With Jalen, it was a concussion. With Jaleel, it was a neck. And we're not going to put them out there unless they are 100% and feel comfortable playing. With Chris Barnes, I'll commend this kid. On Thursday last week, he was not going to play in the game. He was not going to play. He has asthma. He had an infection. He had a drip. He was having trouble catching his breath, breathing. He didn't even come to practice, but was able to have a conversation with Chris and his mom and his dad, and kind of the medication they gave him settled things down. He went out and he ended up playing 97 plays, and he can hardly breathe at times, you know, so he's going to be a week further into the recovery process from that, so I think he'll be better.
Coach, would you say this is the most complete team you've played this year so far?
It's the most complete team we're going to play this week. You know, I'd have to go back and rack my memory. Stanford was good. Obviously, Washington was good. You know, I think the thing that certainly makes these guys so special is they've got tremendous skill position guys. They're solid up front. They've got a running back that, you know, he reminds you of just the great USC running backs of the past. And they've got a quarterback that's gritty, tough, and competitive. You know, defensively they fly around. You know, they play with a lot of energy. They're very talented, and on special teams they're as solid as can be. And they come into this game, I'm sure, with a tremendous amount of confidence. They just won the Pac-12 South. They're, you know, riding a little streak here. They're 15-point favorites. They're getting to play at home. You know, they're playing a beat-up and banged-up UCLA defense that struggled against the run, and they've run the ball well. So I'm sure they're feeling really good about themselves, and they should be.
Sounds like something that would go in your pregame speech about all the odds against you and how you can and want to overcome those.
You know, like Jimbo, what I try to do is just focus on us. You know, when I talk to our players, it's always about let's get better. You know, let's not worry about somebody else's psyche or their situation, because we can't control it. Let's focus on the things that we control, and that's, you brought it up earlier, fundamentals and effort and attitude and energy, you know, and accountability and those types of things, and that's what we're trying to build.
Anything specifically you do USC week, motivation-wise? I mean, I know it's self-motivating, but is there anything else?
Every week's different. You know, you have to get the vibe of your team, really, and you build, every week you build a theme, you know, going into a game. That's what you do. And it sometimes, you know, it's like the river. I mean, sometimes varies as you go through the week. But, you know, this is a game where I think you have to be careful that you get them primed just exactly right, but not too much. Because if emotions start to spill over, you know, we've seen what can happen. You know, we saw a couple of years ago Caleb take a punch on the first play of the game, you know. We understand what the environment's going to be like over there. And so what's really important is that we go in with a tremendously calm, focused, intense mindset. And that's what we'll work on. And that's what we can control.